Welcome back to MaineStreamCurrent, y'all. I'm Drew Hoagland, your host here, and this is another episode of Me News for Me. Today, we're going to be getting back into headlines, and I have three pulled up for you. One of them that's just shaking my head, how is this still happening? Another one that's WTF, mate? And then a third one, which feels like a win. So first of all, we're going to be talking about forever chemicals that are pissing their way into Brunswick landing and waterways. I have an article by MainePublic. Well, it's MainePublic by Nick Song. Brunswick residents seek answers after hazardous PFAS, firefighting foam spill. Brunswick residents sought answers Thursday night at a public forum on last week's spill of a toxic firefighting foam containing PFAS at the former Brunswick Naval Air Base. It goes on to say that people aren't surprised because it was deemed a Superfund area, a Superfund site. I had to look up what Superfund meant. So a Superfund site are locations polluted with hazardous material. Superfund is the name given to the environmental program established to address abandoned hazardous waste sites. And that's what happened at the Naval Air Base. The Air Base, I believe, closed in 2011, and that was before the federal agencies started seeing forever chemicals as what they are. So keep that in mind. So residents weren't surprised because this has actually happened more than once. And as I just mentioned, they've happened since before the federal agencies recognized them as toxic forever chemicals. So those weren't really reported on, but it's been a Superfund site since '87, I believe, which just means that it's been pissing into Maine waterways for decades. On August 19th, a faulty fire suppression system accidentally discharged 1,450 gallons of foam concentrate at the Brunswick Landing development site. The foam spilled into the nearby waterways and polluted the waters and soil with harmful PFAS forever chemicals. In the next legislative session, representatives from Cumberland and Brunswick are saying that they will take it up in Augusta. So hopefully we'll get some kind of answers then. Although, like I said, this has been going on for a while and we're still dealing with it. So it doesn't seem like it's a concern for the air, which is good. So if you're just out exercising, biking on the trails, then it doesn't seem like it should be a safety concern for the air. I'm not seeing that level of risk here, says state toxicologist Dr. Andy Smith. Unless you're somebody who's eating fish, then I would be really concerned for most waters. Hopefully, nobody is. Maine DEP officials say they're taking samples at 19 different sites, including the Brunswick sewer system along the Androscoggin River and the outlet of Harpswell Cove. Some residents criticized the Mid-Coast Regional Redevelopment Authority. I mean, this is something that's been known about. It's been something that's happened before. And I don't understand why we can't take care of this. I am going to do a follow-up on this because there's a lot more to that. And so I will do a follow-up video probably just on forever chemicals and the spill that happened here in Maine. If you have any specific questions, go ahead and share them down below. Or if you have any stories about living in that area and dealing with a Superfund site in your life, or how it's affected your family and the community, I would love to hear that. So go ahead and comment down below. Next, we have this what the fuck article. It just caught me so off guard, and reading the article helped me come to terms with it a little bit more. But it still left me, what the So, Maine just legalized composting human remains. What's next? Mainers can now have their bodies turned into compost after they die. a law allowing human composting facilities, the second of its kind in New England, went into effect August 9th without the governor's signature. To become compost, a process formerly called natural organic reduction, a human body is placed in a special container and combined with materials such as straw and wood chips. The container is heated to kill viruses and bacteria while speeding up the decomposition process, which a month or two later produces about a cubic yard of soil. That's equivalent to 27 standard-size 1 cubic foot bags of soil from a garden center. Like, my initial reaction, I was just flabbergasted. And I mean, it shouldn't be that big of a deal because we already do cremation, and that's not that much different. But somehow, just the comparison of equivalent to 27 standard-size 1 cubic foot bags of soil from a garden center, that just kind of hit me as dystopic. Also, the fact that China is, like, really pushing this along, that also concerns me. I mean, I also wonder, like, if we have cremation, then why do this? So human composting is another new after-death choice in Maine, where green burials have also gained popularity in recent years. Mainers choosing these methods are concerned about the environmental impacts of traditional options and want to literally return to Earth one day. The interest has always been around, said Chuck Lacken, a longtime funeral choice advocate and volunteer for the Funeral Consumers Alliance of Maine. That's a real committee? Funeral Consumers Alliance of Maine. Like, how does one begin that path, that journey to that? I never knew. Now that it can happen, I think it's just going to keep growing. Which I also agree. And again, the dystopic part of me is, or not the dystopic, the skeptical part of me sees this as dystopic and concerned. A few Mainers have already had their remains shipped to facilities in western states, returning home in the mail as soil. I forgot to reference where this came from. I just realized as I was talking. This is from Bangor Daily News, and Elizabeth Waltzoni wrote it on August 25th, 2024. I know that I haven't always referenced my stuff, and I've been called out for it before, so I am going to reference this, and I can include the link down below. So yeah, it's from Bangor Daily News. A few Mainers have already had their remains shipped to facilities in western states, returning home in the mail as soil. Also, like that shipping out of the process to come back in, like it feels more like meat or some kind of product rather than a human. And I'm not trying to judge people that have done this or will do this. I just was shocked when this came up in my newsfeed, and I wanted to share it with everyone. Go ahead and let me know your initial reactions down below. Let me know what you think of this, because I'm still on the fence. The new law requires Maine facilities doing this to be licensed by the Department of Human and Health Services. The department did not respond to a request for information about whether it has received any applications, but Lacken said 6 or 7 different people have contacted the Alliance about starting one. Employees of such operations need to be certified by the department, and a medical examiner, and the law requires a death certificate and a medical examiner or death investigator certificate that says the body doesn't need to be examined further before composting begins. The facility also has to wait 48 hours after the death unless the person died of a contagious disease. The law lays out standards for privacy, use of composting containers, and handling of the remains after composting. Composting human bodies is still illegal in most states, but existing companies hope to expand as the idea gains traction. It's been doing so quickly since Washington was the first to legalize it in 2019. When the Maine law was introduced last spring, the state would have been the 7th. By the time the law took effect, it was the 12th. Again, I'm skeptical because it's coming out of Washington. Washington is not a state that's remotely like Maine. Like, our ideologies and our beliefs and our laws, everything, it's different. And the way that Washington just seems to decriminalize and legalize everything to their detriment really has me concerned. Again, I can separate Washington and all of this from it just happened to come out of Washington first, and it's making its way to Maine. But I'm still skeptical about where this is headed. And maybe in a couple of years, I'll eat my words and be like, yeah, no, this is totally normal now. It was just new to me back then, and I don't know. I didn't know. We'll find out. Here, I'm just trying to report to you some new developments in the state of Maine, and to me, this one struck my bell, and I thought that it might for you too. Composting bills like Maine have been introduced or are in progress in 6 more states, including Massachusetts and New Hampshire. They have failed in New Mexico and Pennsylvania. Earth Funerals, a human composting company with facilities in Washington State and Nevada, also plans to expand soon. It's already composted some former Maine residents, said Hallie Morris, the company's head of communications and governmental affairs. Placed in one of the facility's 70 vessels, after death, customers turn into soil in about a month. It costs roughly $5,000, which is less than a traditional funeral and more than most cremations. Families have used the soil in their home gardens and at memorial services or divided among loved ones, Morris said. We've invested a lot in the technology that allows people to become soil when they die. Technology to do what we're already going to do? I guess they just mean technology that speeds it along, because we will all return to soil. Like, that will happen eventually. So they just mean the technology to speed it along, I'm guessing. Cremation, the most popular option in Maine today, releases chemicals and more than 850 pounds of carbon dioxide into the air by one estimate. Traditional burial requires chemical embalming of the body, and the grave has a concrete lining. These are a few of the environmental concerns that drive Mainers to seek alternatives. Or alternatively, you do a traditional burial and you don't get any kind of chemical embalming, and you don't have any kind of concrete lining. My father, I joke about turning him into a diamond when he dies. I joke about it because he absolutely is horrified by that idea, and that just tickles my fancy that I would joke about it, because at that point he could not control it. I wouldn't actually do that, but he doesn't know it. But anyway, I brought up my father because he wants to build his own burial box, his own, burial box, whatever. He wants to build his own, and he's not going to put concrete into it, and it's going to be made out of organic things, and it's probably not going to be polyurethane and other stains and whatnot. It's probably going to be very simple, very rustic, return to earth very easily. He hasn't built it yet. It would be weird if he built it now, but that is what he's said to do. So there are already ways to go about doing it beyond this. Green burial, or burial in a biodegradable container without embalming the body, has been gaining popularity in Maine too. With several cemeteries dedicated to the practice. Other alternatives include outdoor cremation, a water cremation method, and burials with mushroom shroud that consumes the body. I mean, it was there when I got to that part of the article when I was like, okay, there are other ways. I have heard of other ways. And it's not that weird. It's just new. A national 2023 report by the Natural Funeral Directors Association found that 60% of those surveyed were interested in natural burials of some kind, up nearly 5% from the 2 years before. Lacken said green burial and human composting share the same result. The human bodies return to the soil. Again, that's just kind of like a misnomer. I don't know. It's just skating by the truth, because we are all going to return to the earth. Even those cement-lined boxes, like those will also return to soil one day. It's just a matter of how quickly that happens. And then I guess also the impact that happens with it. But I am under the belief that the earth is much, much stronger and much, much more powerful than we give it credit for. And sometimes when I see all these green endeavors that are trying to help the earth, I just kind of shake my head, because I'm like, the earth doesn't really need our help. The earth is going to do what it's done for allegedly billions of years. And what are we ultimately going to do in the blimp of human existence? So I'm not trying to get off onto a tangent. I'm just saying that there are times when certain efforts seem pointless. And to me, this seems like one of them. Maine's primary bill sponsor, State Representative Vicky Udera, a Democrat of Camden, testified last year that the bill was primarily about giving people choices for their death. She said it was introduced because constituents had asked for the option to be legalized. Mainers should have the freedom to return to the earth in a way that resonates with their lives and values, she said. Gardeners who supported the bill also described the spiritual component to the composting process and the idea of completely returning to the earth upon their death. Some religious groups, the Catholic Church in particular, say the process doesn't respect human dignity and treats the human body like waste. They've also highlighted the part of the process where bones that don't decompose are ground up and put back into compost. The ultimate denial of soul, one Christian publication recently called human composting. Repulsive, said another. In Maine, no one testified against the bill. Others, including some Christians, said to the state legislator's Health and Human Services Committee that human composting is in line with religious teachings of life on earth being temporary. For dust you were, and to dust you will return, one Brunswick resident quoted from the Bible. Again, that was the article from Bangor Daily News by Elizabeth Waltsoni, just to get that out there. So I thought that was, again, I don't know how to feel about that. Maybe it's just a new process and it just takes some getting used to. Part of it seems like it's heading down a path that I don't necessarily think we should go down. But those are just my understandings, and that's just my opinion, but I do want to know your opinion and what you think of this. Lastly, I have, in my opinion, an article that is good news. So this is from Q106.5, written by Jordan Verge, retailer with 11 locations in Maine to end DEI policies. This major retailer, which is found all across our Pine Tree state, has announced its intentions to end certain diversity-related policies. Many companies have diversity policies in place because they want to create a fair and welcoming environment for everyone, which is noble. That's a great endeavor. These policies help ensure that people of all backgrounds feel respected and valued at work. Again, that sounds great. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, programs are designed to support these goals by promoting equal opportunities and addressing any barriers that might prevent some people from succeeding. Having DEI programs in place can lead to a more positive workplace where different perspectives are appreciated, leading to better ideas and solutions. This retailer with 11 locations in Maine isn't the only one to have recently ended certain diversity policies. In 2024, Tractor Supply Company and Harley-Davidson made significant changes to their policies by eliminating diversity and inclusion goals, ending support for Pride events, and withdrawing from the Relationship with the Human Rights campaign. Both companies also moved away from their previous environmental and social commitments, including carbon emission goals, which on the face can make them look awful and terrible. It's like you want to be racist and misogynistic and hurt the environment. But if you've been paying attention, that's not at all what happens when people step away from DEI. Companies that embrace DEI all the way are the ones that are doing the worst. So I applaud these companies because they actually care about their employees and the people that they serve, because they realize that most people do not want to shop at places with DEI put to the forefront because they're just simply not the best. They're not quality. And when people shop nowadays and they spend hard-earned money, they want quality. We want quality. So, which company in Maine has announced plans to scale back some of its policies? Lowe's recently announced changes to its DEI programs as reported by MarketWatch and Bloomberg and confirmed in a recent company memo. The home improvement retailer will no longer participate in human rights campaigns, surveys, or sponsor community events like parades and festivals. Instead, Lowe's will focus on initiatives related to safe and affordable housing, disaster relief, and skilled trades education, which makes so much more sense than DEI, because DEI is so vague and it can be warped and twisted in a million different ways. And something like having safe and affordable housing, disaster relief, and skilled trades education benefits everyone. Not just one skin color, not just one background, but everyone. DEI does not benefit everyone. It benefits, it really benefits minorities. And I'm not just talking about racial minorities. I'm a minority being a gay man. I'm not talking about those kind of minorities. I'm talking about it enables not to be focused on quality of work. You're focusing on other things, and instead it should be focused on quality. The company emphasized its commitment to inclusion, stating that its hiring practices are on merit and results, not targets and quota. So they said it much better than me. It should be on merit and results, regardless of background, not targets and quota. But that is something, Boeing trying to hire more women, specifically trying to have whatever percentage, 40% of the workforce being female, that's a target. They're not drawing out there trying to find the most qualified pilots. No, they're trying to look for the most qualified female pilots, which is great. There are some great female pilots out there, but it shouldn't be based on your race, your ethnicity, your sexual background, sexual orientation, your background, none of that. So the fact that Lowe's is doing this, I think, is a huge step. I'm glad to know that Harley-Davidson and Tractor Supply Company are also going in that way, or they went in that way, and now Lowe's is following in that way, because I think we're watching the pendulum swing. Because we've watched for years as companies that we adore and cherish trash themselves to the point that myself and others won't shop at certain ones and won't buy certain products because they have alienated us so far. So I don't always want to have headlines that are bad news, although they're plentiful. I do want to include some things that are good news and can be a slap in the face of wokeism, because that is not the way to be. Be awake, not woke. Know what's going on, be observant, pay attention, use your brain. Don't just trust me. Don't just trust any politician. Don't trust any other content creator outright. You can come to certain understandings where, I usually agree with Drew except for here. Drew has many points except for this. Or I don't really like Drew's opinion, but he's right here. Take that and then do your own research. And do that for everyone. Do that for all your politicians and all the people that you follow. And all education that you learn. Don't just take one source. The internet has tons and tons of information, but libraries do too. You can go into a library and you can find counterpoints to points and counterpoints and all of it. You just have to know what is more educated, what has more science and data behind it, and then look at a wide range of this and come to your own understanding. And no one else is going to 100% agree with you. No one viewing this is going to 100% agree with me. That's not reasonable. Otherwise, someone is lying. So these headlines are just things that are going on here in Maine currently. Don't just take my word on it. Go ahead and do some of your own research. This is just to get you to have an idea of what's going on in our state that you may not, because we all live busy lives, and a lot of this information gets pushed under the radar, especially here in a state like Maine, where we don't have a whole lot of content creators. We don't have a whole lot of videos that are posted. And then the news here in the state of Maine all says the same thing. There are some newspapers that offer up alternative thoughts, but I don't have the money and the time to subscribe to all of those and have them all come out. So I do a lot of my research online, and I can leave the references down below. But do your own research and come to your own understanding, but just stay educated. Don't just swallow what anyone says whole or blindly. And I guess that's how I'll end this. Go ahead and leave your comments down below. I want to know your thoughts on these 3 different subjects, or maybe something that I said. If you have personal stories that involve any of this, or you have more knowledge on an area than I do, leave that as well. If you have any critiques, just please be respectful and polite, and I look forward to talking to you all soon in the next video. Until then, this is MaineStreamCurrent. I'm Drew Hoagland. Have a good night.